This has massive implications for the Celtics. As we all know, Karl Anthony Towns was traded to the New York Knicks, with the Timberwolves having some cap issues. So with the Celtics obviously being in the second apron, how is that going to affect them in the further seasons with big men in Al Horford and Kristaps Porziņģis? Also, some minor moves with the Celtics as Tony Snell gets traded for another opportunity, and we have an update on Jay Scrubb as well, as he is rehabbing in the Celtics facility. We're going to get to all of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. You guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support for Godfrey and I, and we really do appreciate it. I want to let all of you guys know that tomorrow, as we all know, the Celtics take on their first preseason game in Abu Dhabi versus the Denver Nuggets at 12 p.m. We will be live here on Celtics Digest watching the game and breaking it all down. So if you want to join, have some fun, make sure to tune in and check that out tomorrow. If you're busy or missed that, don't worry, we'll have a post-game update for you as usual. We want to get the live streams up and going, and we think that this will be the perfect time to do it. So let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. Sorry for the long introduction. But first, we're going to dive into some of the smaller news. And one of the topics we're going to be discussing first is Tony Snell getting another chance. And this is absolutely fantastic for Tony Snell. Now, if you guys do not know or weren't really big fans of the G League last year, Tony Snell, it was on the Maine Celtics last season, and he has had stints in the NBA, probably most notably famous for his 0-0-0 game, which, isn't the best limelight, but Tony Snell was a solid NBA role player as a pretty solid defender in the NBA and pretty solid scorer for an abundance of years. Tony Snell last season had some family issues, wanted to make the NBA so he could get some guaranteed more money to help out his family. And unfortunately, even though he had a great season with the Maine Celtics being their veteran leader and ultimately showing it up on the stat sheet as well, not just in the locker room, he was unable to get a deal to the NBA and was stuck in the G League last season. This year, though, he gets another opportunity as he is going to be traded to another team. And let's dive into that. So as we guys broke down and as we discussed, courtesy of Michael Scotto, 9-year NBA veteran Tony Snell is joining the Sioux Falls Skyforce, the Miami Heat's G League affiliate, league sources tell Hoops Hype. The 32-year-old swingman has averaged 6.1 points and shot 39.4% from three-point range in 9 NBA seasons. So like I said, he's still a solid NBA player. He could still play a role and could definitely earn himself, a back-end role on a team, maybe even on a team that is pretty bad, like the Wizards, or maybe even a team that's expected to be kind of mid like the Bulls. He can make an impact on one of those cities. But a team like Miami, that's always known for finding some grizzled veterans or finding those guys through the G League, I'm sure Snell will get that opportunity if he proves itself and could make some impact for the Heat. And I discussed that on my Twitter. If we want to look at that, we can see that I was pumped. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter to get NBA updates, some more Celtics stuff, just NBA all around, check this out. But I was pumped. I said, let's go. Snell was on the Maine Celtics last season, fighting for a spot in the NBA, and he was deserving of that opportunity. And now gets another one with the Miami Heat G League, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But that's not just all the news revolving around that, because for this to happen, the Celtics would have to do a trade. They'd have to trade some sort of rights. They trade Tony Snell's rights to the Miami Heat. Now they have ownership. Who are the Celtics going to be getting back? Well, that's what we have for you guys next. Courtesy of Ira Winderman, who is a Miami Heat reporter. In order to the Heat's G League team to acquire G League rights to Tony Snell, the Sioux Falls Skyforce sent the returning player rights of Check Diallo to the Celtics G League affiliate. So the Celtics will now be taking on Check Diallo. Now, for the Boston Celtics, this could be some good news. As we all know, Check Diallo's had some brothers in the NBA alongside him, Hami Diallo, and more prominently, one of the brothers. But Check Diallo, unfortunately, I don't think will be making the trip coming over to Boston and playing for this G League team, because if we want to look at, oh, sorry, did not mean to do that. Let's go over here. Oh no, I don't have it. Okay, I guess I don't have it. Sorry. But apparently, Check Diallo is playing in the Malian Basketball Association and hasn't been in the G League since 2021, 2022. So I believe that he is not going to be coming over to this Celtics team and will be remaining playing basketball over there, which will leave the Celtics an open spot for their main G League to use from one of those Exhibit 10 guys or possibly a player that we're going to be discussing next. As Bobby Manning highlights, the Celtics made a similar G League trade to acquire Jay Scrubb earlier this off season. And I think he could be one of those players that could get those G League spot for Diallo and kind of replacing Snell. Maybe not in that role, but obviously in the lineup. So let me know what you guys think down below. Next, let's get into the next part, which is an update on the player we were just discussing in Jay Scrubb. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. With Jay Scrubb, we can see from Noah Dalzell here that Jay Scrubb is in the gym working out, courtesy of his Instagram story. She said he's back working out at the Celtics practice facility. He's expected to be in Maine this season to begin. Now, there's been some questionable reporting on, Scrubb, as we saw he was going to be back with the Celtics. People expected him to be in Exhibit 10, wasn't given an Exhibit 10. I think he's still rehabbing his injury and still trying to come back, still working in that facility. And the Celtics granted him that after he tore his ACL with the Celtics in training camp heading into the season, as he was a two-way player, as he was a standout in the Summer League last year at the guard position. Now, Scrubb, I still think will be an effective player for Maine and will be one of the better players for the Maine Celtics, and possibly next year could earn a two-way spot with this team or his two-way spot with another franchise. I'm wishing nothing but the best of luck for Jay Scrubb. If you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you know I'm a big supporter of him, and I hope he comes out balling for Maine. Next, let's get into the important part of the video, the part you guys clicked in for, and that's discussing the scare. This is scary for Boston's future, and that's talking about the Karl-Anthony Towns trade with Timberwolves and the Knicks. So I'm really going into detail about that. We already discussed that in another video, kind of how that affects the Boston Celtics as competing wise, but we're going to be talking about roster construction and how this is going to affect the Celtics in the future. Because the Boston Celtics, as we all know, are in the second apron, and they just gave Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Jrue Holiday, Derrick White, Sam Hauser these massive, massive extensions. They already have Peyton Pritchard locked up, have Porziņģis for one more year as well, or 2 more years, excuse me. And this is concluding the season, and this is going to kind of be the start of eyeing the Celtics and seeing what they're going to do. The Timberwolves were in the second apron already, had some questionable decisions to make in the offseason with Gobert being a free agent, Naz Reid being extension eligible alongside Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and if they were unable to trade Karl-Anthony Towns either this season or next season, they would lose ultimately those two young pieces. So that's how this construction of the new CBA is kind of working and forming teams. And we're going to see some teams kind of breaking up soon. We've already seen the Clippers kind of go through a little bit with the Paul George losing out on him and not getting anything really in return. I think the Suns and the Celtics are two teams to keep an eye on as well for the future in that as well. So let's get into that and let's start discussing that. Like we mentioned, this article is courtesy of Keith Smith on the of Spot Track. It was a fantastic job over there. One of my favorite reputable NBA sources. If you guys need to do a trade finder, if you guys need to do any sort of cap looking up, trying to figure out salaries, use Spot Track. They update the best, they update the fastest, and they are always so accurate. Keith is so detailed and so great with his salary cap work. You guys need to use this website for all your NBA stuff. I use it all the time. Let's get into this. A little bit of a plug there, but let's get into sports, courtesy of Keith Smith. So we're gonna be looking at the second apron and kind of breaking it down. Obviously, this is a lot of words and stuff. I'm basically going to summarize it up. But as we all know, for the Knicks to do this trade with the second apron salary cap, the Timberwolves would have to send out $49 million. Now, the Timberwolves cannot take back more than that $49 million in a trade. So for the Knicks, combining Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and Keita Bates-Diop, all to be aggregated in the deal, it would only add up to around $43 million of outgoing salary, which still leaves around $6 million in salary left on the table. This is where things get complicated because they need to fill in that $6 million because with the second apron, they need to take in the Timberwolves need to take back in as much money as they're sending out or less. And for another team to hop in, that's where kind of Charlotte gets in. Now, New York had some players that went and signed overseas, so they had their bird rights and could use sign and trade deals. So with players like Daquan Jeffries, Charlie Brown Jr., Dwayne Washington Jr., they were allowed to incorporate those players in the deals to get the deal done. Now the Charlotte Hornets come in, and obviously since the Charlotte Hornets are sitting below the luxury tax line, they get some second round picks for helping this deal go out because the Timberwolves couldn't acquire these three players because they would have taken too many players under roster and they would have been over the salary cap. Therefore, they had to go to Charlotte, where Charlotte will get some cap flexibility. Will be taking on these contracts to kind of eliminate their cap flexibility for a little bit, but they're obviously going to sign and waive these guys and then ultimately let them go back to their parent clubs that they want to play in Europe. Now, for the Hornets, they get some second round picks as well. And it's basically just jumping in the trade, taking some bad contracts, signing and waiving possibly a couple of them, and getting some free second round picks on the end. Pretty solid deal for the Hornets. But as we all know, this is about the Celtics. So how does this really affect the Celtics, Bruce? And why are you bringing this up? Well, as we all know, the Celtics are in the second apron, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be a dilemma and discussion to have going into next season and the season after that. So unfortunately, I did mess up and I don't have the background for these next two images. So ignore the no background here. But as you guys can see, looking at this roster, we are paying our guys a lot of money this season. See, Brown's making $49 million, Tatum's making $30 million. You got Holiday making money, Porziņģis making money, Derrick White making money, and all these players are tied up to long-term deals as well. If we want to look at the multi-year cap for the Celtics here, again, courtesy of Spot Track, you guys can use this for all of your resources. We can see that the Celtics this season, at the end of this year, will have 3 free agents, and those 3 free agents will be Al Horford, Jaden Springer, and Luke Cornett. Now, Luke Cornett signed on a 1-year deal and ultimately might look to go somewhere else. Al Horford could possibly retire. Now, Horford hasn't obviously said he hasn't put a timetable on his career, but he is getting up in age. Now, I don't count on him retiring. He could come back on a team-friendly discount, could come on a veteran minimum contract, play at the end of the bench, and I could see that happening as well. But retirement, if the Celtics do win back-to-back, could be a destination for Horford as well. And also Jaden Springer, a young player who has some untapped potential to show for the Celtics. Could he earn that extension and stay long-term if he finds a role with this team, or will the Celtics possibly move him or look to use him as a tradable contract to bring Lonnie Walker in to be that replacement if they find Lonnie Walker being good as their 15th man if they decide to sign him. Ultimately, there are a lot of questions revolving around the Celtics, and we'll have to wait getting to those free agencies to answer those questions. But one question for sure is that this team is going to be expensive, and it's going to be expensive for a long period of time. And I don't see them breaking up the Jays. I don't see them separating those guys, but I could see them moving their pieces around the edges. Players like Kristaps Porziņģis. Maybe if Al Horford retires, they look to do something with Kristaps Porziņģis on a cheaper deal to keep him long term. I could see a player like Peyton Pritchard and maybe Sam Hauser if Springer and Lonnie Walker look really good. Maybe if they want to get bigger roles, they could go pursue those on other teams. And we have Shireman to replace a guy in Hauser. If he looks like he could be that guy, maybe you put him in that role. I think that the Celtics are going to have to analyze this and answer these questions sooner rather than later, regardless if it's going into next season or the season after that. The team's going to have to realize, with it wanting to be on a sale and getting new ownership, that this ownership might not want to fork out all this money for this organization, specifically if they want to build a new arena and do all this investing into the team as well. It's going to be a lot of commotion and a lot of noise, specifically with some of these players getting older too. Guys like Holiday, guys like Porziņģis. Celtics might want to look to use some of those contracts to trade them in 2 to 3 years to get some younger pieces to still help out the guys in JT and JB, still compete for championships and make them a dynasty. I think that could be the foreseeable future. I think personally that going into next season, we're going to see a little bit of tweaks. I think if the Celtics win the championship, I think players maybe like Pritchard or Hauser could want maybe to get those bigger roles on some bigger teams, and with their contracts, being somewhat tradable, if we want to look back at how much they're making going into next year, Peyton Pritchard right around that $7 million mark, and for Sam Hauser, we can see he's making right around that $10 million mark. You could facilitate two, smaller deals where you're sending out players in Pritchard and players in Hauser to get either 1 or 2 smaller contracts or a player and a pick to then get some more youth into your team to then either utilize those picks to make moves with a Porziņģis or Holiday, or to use those picks to then draft and select younger players. Ultimately, it's going to be building through the draft, going through the youth movement, and trying to find those guys that are going to be able to be key players that can stick long term. We're kind of seeing it with the Nuggets now. They've been a little bit stingy, but they let go of KCP. They let go of Bruce Brown. They let go of Jeff Green, and they're utilizing guys like Peyton Watson. They're utilizing a guy in Christian Braun to be in their starting lineup, and they're going to believe in those young guys. And the Celtics might have to go to that direction in the future. I don't see it happening, obviously, this offseason and in this year, but possibly next year or the year after. Those are questions that this front office and Brad Stevens are definitely going to be having. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts overall on all this news? The Tony Snell trade, the Jay Scrubb little update, and this kind of going over the Celtics, front office and how they're going to handle things in the future. Let me know what you guys think. A little bit of a longer episode, but I do appreciate all your guys' support. Like I said, we're going to be live tomorrow at 12 p.m. for the preseason game. We can't show the preseason game, but we will be here. We'll have a little ticker at the bottom letting you know the score update at the bottom, and I will be going over reacting to the game, watching it on my TV, having a great time with you guys, and I can't wait to see you all there. Hope you guys are ready to go. The Celtics are less than 24 hours away and be playing, and I am more than excited. Hope you guys have a great day. Let's go Boston Celtics. One more sleep to Celtics basketball. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out, y'all.